This is Joe. He is a film student who wants to make a difference in the entertainment industry. He doesn't know how he will be able to do this, so he decided to go on a search for an answer, to find which movies have been able to make an impact on society, or the other way around.
Joe wanted to find an answer. He went in search for this answer at the library. Joe has a lot of questions. What do the experts have to say about how movies reflect society? How do movies reflect society? And why do movies speak to us that way?
While it's a little too early to study the psychological implications of today's movies, researchers have had a chance to examine the past. A good example of this is the post-war era. Researchers found that, although few of the movies of the post-war era referred directly to the themes of existentialism, it nevertheless provided the intellectual milieu within which a generation sought to come to grips with its own condition. The themes of individualism against conformity, of free will against determinism, of trying to understand chaos and interpret the meaning of a world almost destroyed by war.
Through his research, he also discovered that there were new genres influenced by the present day. An example of this would be film noir. According to Cindy Tsutsumi, film noir developed when feelings of tension, insecurity, and contradiction found their way into American popular culture. Although mass media was promoting both a new consumerism and a nostalgic American identity, a darker side of the American psyche also began to appear. All of this uncertainty began making its way into American films throughout 1940s. Film noir is a unique body of work that provides insight into the darker side of that conflicted decade.
Now that Joe has done all this research, he wants to know what his friends think about it. Joe decides to get them together to talk about their thoughts on that topic.
Yeah, I mean, we all like to see a movie that we can relate to.
Yeah, definitely. Movies usually come out maybe a year or two after a certain event happens, and I feel like we like to keep up on our current events and see real events be made into movies.
I feel that movies do reflect our society, especially the fears that play in a society in that time period.
I think that some movies reflect society, but I think that other movies have an influence on society because of just kind of like the storyline of the movie.
I do think that movies reflect society. I think that we take what we see in movies and replicate them, whether it be through jokes with friends or through our actions.
The Great Gatsby, I think, is a good example. The main character struggles to rise above his circumstances. That's something we all like to think that we can do, but it eventually ends up crumbling on him in the end. Which I kind of think reflects the cynicism that most people have, that it just won't work out at the end.
For example, the new one coming out, Captain Phillips, about the Somali pirates. That was a real thing that happened, and the movie reflects that.
I think a good example of it would be the fad with zombies right now. I think people are afraid of complacency, that zombies bring like their mindlessness, and that's one of the big fears of our time period right now.
I mean, just looking at the San Francisco story with the kid who got to be Batman for a day, and the entire city came out, we wouldn't care about a story about some vigilante if it didn't reflect society.
The use of criticism is one of the ways movies reflect society. It is easy to see what is important to the people at a given time by noticing what they complain most about. A good example of this is the movie Patch Adams.
Any other questions? Patients are opening up to me, Corinne. They're sharing their dreams, their fantasies. They don't concentrate on the pain.
Americans have been disillusioned about healthcare since long before Obamacare took center stage in the national political debate. That is why the movie Patch Adams made such an impact on audiences when it was released in 1998 and why it continues to be relevant 15 years later.
But how do movies affect us? As an international student, I realized that there are so many people here in the United States are really affected by superhero films. These kind of movies became a part of the American culture. In my opinion, this type of movies have a good and bad effects for us. For example, the movie Superman is one with both good and bad influences, so we must be aware that it's important to bring forth the positive rather than the negative.
Another example would be Breaking Dawn. Just kidding, Red Dawn. This movie has been released in 1984 and 2012. The first was when America was in the middle of the Cold War. This showcased people's real fears and emotions of the time. This film was remade again in 2012. Same story, different setting, and different invaders. The question is, why did Hollywood decide to bring this film back? Filmmakers know that unless they make the story relevant to the present, most people will not be interested. This is because film adapts to the times in which they are made. Yet the message is the same in both adaptations. Red Dawn is about fighting for our cherished freedoms as Americans. We want to be shown that if things do progress badly, we will be able to fight the invaders off and keep our freedom.
And we found out that movies do reflect society in many ways, from literal current events happening at the time to a deeper, more emotional and mental connection with the movie. And movies are meant to be enjoyed by the society for which they're made, so it makes sense that they would relate to them in that way. And it's going to be interesting to see what movies come out in the next century with all the changes in the world.